السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا وسيئات أعمالنا. من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له. وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. أما بعد فنتابع القراءة في كتاب الأدب المفرد للإمام البخاري رحمه الله. باب بر من كان يصله أبوه. حدثنا عبد الله بن صالح قال حدثني الليث عن خالد بن يزيد عن عبد الله بن دينار عن ابن عمر رضي الله عنهما قال: مر أعرابي في سفر، وكان أبو الأعرابي صديقا لعمر، فقال للأعرابي: ألست ابن فلان؟ قال: بلى. فأمر له ابن عمر بحمار كان يستعقب عليه، ونزع عمامته عن رأسه فأعطاه. فقال بعض من كان معه: أما يكفيه درهمان؟ قال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم: احفظ ود أبيك لا تقطعه فيطفئ الله نورك. So continuing the reading from the book, the Etiquettes, written or compiled by Imam Bukhari rahimahullah. We're still on the subject of being dutiful to the parents. In this chapter about being kind to those who your parents used to be friends with or like. In this narration, Ibn Umar radiyallahu anhuma, he was one time was out of his house. He seen one of the people of the desert, one of the Bedouins, Arabi, and he asked him, aren't you so and so? He said yes. So Ibn Umar, he had a ride, he has a donkey he would use to ride in town. He gave it to him. He had a head cover, amama, that he used to cover his head with. He gave it to him. Somebody saw him. He's somebody from the desert. You give him a couple of dirham, he'll be happy with it. And he told him he was a friend of his father. And Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam has said, keep the connections, those that your father liked. Don't cut it. Otherwise, Allah will take away your light. So, being kind to the people your parents liked is a kind of keeping the kinship with your parents. So, after your parents pass away, you cannot be kind to them anymore directly. You can do it indirectly to people they like. If you don't do it, you intentionally don't do it, that nur, that guidance that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put it in your heart, where you become loving to obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that will go away. That reminds me of poets that Shafi'i, he used to say some poetry. شكيت إلى وكيع سوء حفظي فأخبرني إلى ترك المعاصي وقال لي إن العلم نور ونور الله لا يؤتاه عاصي. It's said that Imam Shafi'i said it. Allahu Alam, there's no clear narration, but it could be him. So Waki' was one of the early scholars, although he wasn't a teacher of Imam Shafi'i. That's why some people doubt it. But anyhow, whoever wrote this piece of poetry complained to Waki', one of the known scholars of early Islam, that he cannot memorize Quran well. And he told him, you need to stay away from sins. This knowledge is light coming from Allah. It cannot come to the hearts of sinners. So here, for those who don't keep the connections for the people that their parents like, that nur will be taken away from them. So this nur is beyond information. There's a difference between information and useful knowledge. Allahumma inna nas'aluka ilman nafi'a. When you ask Allah, you ask Him for ilm, knowledge that benefits you. So it should leave some effect on you. It's not piece of information. It's not like somebody that knows smoking is bad and he's smoking. This is not a beneficial knowledge for him. And the same thing here. If you keep the respecting your parents, even after they pass away, that's you keeping your heart alive, that can accept that nur from Allah. The description in Surah AlNur about the Muslim, give an example, being like a lamp that's surrounded by a piece of glass that's kept in a window in the wall. So that's the believer with his heart, with the nur coming from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, lighting it up. And that شجرة مباركة زيتونة لا شرقية ولا غربية, the oil that comes from a blessed tree, the olive tree, is that Quran, that knowledge that comes. So you need that nur of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and acts of kindness is what keeping this light going on. And one of the best acts of kindness, keeping acts of kindness to those your parents like. You don't know them, they're different generation. They're the generation of your parents. So you have no direct connection with them, but you respect them, you deal with them kindly to keep that connection with your parents. وفي الحديث الثاني في هذا الباب حدثنا عبد الله بن يزيد حدثنا حيوة قال حدثني أبو عثمان الوليد بن أبي الوليد عن عبد الله بن دينار عن ابن عمر. يكثر الرواية عن عبد الله بن دينار في الأحاديث والآثار التي فيها رقائق. اشتهر عبد الله بن دينار بزهده وبرقائق القلوب والأمور التي تقرب إلى الله عز وجل. فإذا روى عبد الله بن دينار عن ابن عمر عن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم قال إن أبر البر أن يصل الرجل أهل ود أبيه. In this hadith, the tabi'i, his name is Abdullah ibn Dinar, and he was one of famous students of the Sahaba, tabi'in, those are who learned from the Sahaba, and he was famous for being somebody who looked at the matters of the heart. Sometimes he narrates issues that relates to fiqh and details of the fiqh, but a lot of times he narrates issues that relates to the heart, connection to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the first hadith he narrated, Abdullah ibn Dinar reported it from Ibn Umar, and the second one also Abdullah ibn Dinar, he's one of the students of Ibn Umar. He narrates this hadith that one of the closest signs of doing good is to keep the ties and the kindship to those who your father liked. So the friends of your father, close to the first one.
Sheikh, father and mother or just father?
Here means both.
Okay.
Usually men did not interact too much with women. So the friend of your mother is usually a foreign woman for you. You're unlikely to meet her in the street. But still, if you know that there was a neighbor or a friend to your mother and she needs help, she needs something you can help her with, you can send her a gift or something like this, that's also permissible. We know from the story, Aisha, she said she would feel jealous from Khadija, though Khadija died before her and she was much older than her, that once Rasulullah ﷺ, an old lady came and visited him, he was so happy and he gave her a lot of things that you give for a guest. And he said, why would you care about this old lady? He said she was a friend of Khadija. So Khadija got jealous Aisha got jealous from Khadija. So here, meaning that Rasulullah ﷺ, out of love for his wife Khadija, those who are her friends, although they're older now, he's still being kind to them as a sign of being kind to his late wife. باب لا تقطع من كان يصل أباك فيطفأ نورك. يشبه الذي قبله. حدثنا بشر بن محمد قال أخبرنا عبد الله قال أخبرنا عبد الله بن لاحق قال أخبرني سعد بن عبادة الزرقي أن أباه قال كنت جالسا في مسجد المدينة مع عمرو بن عثمان فمر بنا عبد الله بن سلام متكئا على ابن أخيه فبعد عن المسجد ثم عطف عليه فرجع عليهم فقال ما شيت عمرو بن عثمان مرتين أو ثلاثة فوالذي بعث محمدا بالحق إنه لفي كتاب الله مرتين لا تقطع من كان يصل أباك فيطفأ بذلك نورك. In this hadith, Amr ibn Uthman, he was sitting with the narrator of the hadith, the father of Sa'd ibn Abi Ubadah al-Zuraqi. He said, we were sitting in Masjid al-Madinah. And Abdullah ibn Salam, if you remember, he was one of the few scholars of Jews that turned into Islam. And he knew from reading the Old Testament, Torah, that there was a foretelling about the message of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It was telling about the coming of Isa, and then the coming of the messenger that had come from land of Bakka, which is Mecca, and describing how his da'wah will come in a land between palm trees, describing Medina. So once he saw Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he knew that he was the prophet foretold in their Torah about it. So he came to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he told him, you fulfill the prophecy that we read in our books, and I believe in you. He said, don't declare it yet. Let's bring the Jews. So he brought the top of the Jews, scholars and prominent one in Medina. So what do you think of Abdullah ibn Salam? Oh, he's the best one of us. He's the most knowledgeable. We respect him and we follow his guidance. So Abdullah ibn Salam comes, he said, I bear witness there's no God but Allah and that Muhammad is the messenger of God. So he's the worst man. He's the least knowledgeable among us. We don't respect him. We don't follow his teaching. So he was very knowledgeable. So when he saw these groups of tabi'een sitting in the masjid, he was so old, he was leaning on one of his nephews just to be able to walk. When he came to them, he told them, I give oath by Allah, the one who sent Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam with the truth, that we find it in the book of Allah. That means the Torah, not in Quran. That you shouldn't cut away those that your father kept them close, otherwise your light will be turned off. So from his knowledge in the Old Testament and Torah, this was there. And there's no surprise, they're all coming from the same source. Torah, Injil, and Quran, all revelations of Allah. The difference that people altered Torah and Injil. They don't even know who wrote it. Lately, I was been following a lot about the writing of the scripture, the Old Testament, the New Testament, how have different versions. They have the Hebrew book, they have a Greek book, and they have the English book. The English book, the earliest translation, is 1,000 years after Isa, after Jesus. The Hebrew and the Greek books, 200 to 300 years after Jesus died. Then they were happy when they found the Red Sea Scrolls. The Red Sea Scrolls belong to a secretive Jewish sect that started about 100 years before Jesus, went on 100 or 200 years after his death. And they believed in a Messiah that's coming, and that Qiyamah, the hereafter, is coming right away. When they started, their teacher, they read certain texts in Torah, that the Messiah is coming in 40 years, that's it. So they left Jerusalem, they lived in the caves in Qumran, between Jordan and Palestine near the Dead Sea, and they wrote the Torah, the Old Testament, in scrolls and hid it in jars. And then this was discovered in 1942, and now it's all translated from Old Hebrew to English. What they found in it, this is 1,000 years. So Moses is about 2,000 to 3,000 years before Jesus. So this is 2,000 to 3,000 years after Moses, and they don't know where they got it from. And they were so happy they found something. When they compared it with the Hebrew, the Greek, and English Old Testament, it didn't match. There's a lot of similarity, but there is a lot of discrepancies that makes one doubt that what are they translating? Like words, the Son of God and the sons of Israel. Makes a big difference. He's saying that when God created human beings, he divided their sustenance. according to the numbers of the sons of God, Bani Elohim, or the sons of Israel, Bani Israel. So it makes a big difference what it says. And the first one is complete shirk, believing that God has sons. So what does that mean word? They're referring to al-Mala al-A'la. They're referring to the closest of angels to Allah, but then they're confusing creatures with sons. وَقَالَتِ الْيَهُودُ وَالنَّصَارَى نَحْنُ أَبْنَاءُ اللَّهِ وَأَحِبَّاؤُهُ. The Quran is telling us that the Jews and Christians believe they are the sons of God and the most beloved to Him. قُلْ فَلِمَ يُعَذِّبُكُمْ بِذُنُوبِكُمْ بَلْ أَنْتُمْ بَشَرٌ مِّمَّنْ خَلَقَ. Say then, if you're really the sons of God, why would He punish you for your sins? We know Bani Israel were exposed so many kinds of punishment. The first thing they've seen during the time of Musa, that they were forbidden from entering the Holy Land. 40 years they stayed lost in the desert of Sinai because they made the golden calf and they worshipped it. And then every time Allah promised them to fulfill the promise, they entered Jerusalem. Then they broke the covenant with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They started fighting one another. They have the kingdom of Israel, the kingdoms of Yahweh. They started fighting. Then Allah imposed on them outer enemies, the Persians at one point, the Romans at another point, and destroyed the kingdom. Meaning that the original Torah and Injil are the words of Allah. What we have now is a mixture. There are words of Allah in it, and then there are descriptions from other human beings being put in it without knowing who wrote it. Even the New Testament, the book of, I think, Luke and Thomas and so on, all these books, they don't know that the disciples of Jesus wrote this. So it's unknown. So they decided that after 200, 300 years, that there were a lot of books, a lot of gospels. So they collected certain gospels and said, this is what we're going to include in the Bible. They collected again 200 to 300 years after Jesus died. The difference, Quran was collected at the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and the final version of it, when written in one book, was the time of Abu Bakr. The people who heard it from Rasulullah, they memorized it, they finalized it in one book, different from somebody coming 300-400 years later and writing it. So the Quran's book of Allah has been kept till the end of times. So yes, so this was in the original Torah. This is a revelation from Allah, but not everything in Torah and Injil are the words of Allah. باب الود يتوارث. حدثنا بشر بن محمد قال أخبرنا عبد الله قال أخبرنا محمد بن عبد الرحمن عن محمد بن فلان بن طلحة عن أبي بكر بن حزم عن رجل من أصحاب النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم قال كفيتك أن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم قال إن الود يتوارث. So this is a section about how the kindship and friendship gets inherited. So when your parents die, you inherit their friend. And we see it sometimes even inherit their enemies. People who hated your parents, sometimes they hate you because they hated your parents. But at least from your standpoint, you should keep that friendship of your parents alive. This hadith was the tabi'i, Abu Bakr ibn Hazm. He said, I heard it from one of the men who are companions of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So it's not known who's that companion. Normally, in the chain of narration, if there's a person who's not known, this is considered a weak chain of narration, except for the Sahaba. If he's a Sahabi, he's a companion of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the consensus of all the ulama, all the Sahaba are trustworthy. So even if we don't mention it, as long as he's a Sahabi, that's enough for us. Doesn't matter if it's Abu Bakr or Umar or Abu Huraira or Aisha, as long as it's a Sahabi, the words are trustworthy. So the other chains, once you go a step beyond the students of the Sahaba, you need to know who they are. Because alterations happen after the time of Sahaba. You start having the Khawarij. They were not Sahaba. They were starting at the time of the Sahaba, starting discrediting the Sahaba, and some of them start fabricating hadith to justify their extreme view of Islam, declaring anybody who make any mistake, call them a kafir, calling the Sahaba kafir, Uthman kafir, Ali kafir, and so on, and start killing people right and left. So the generation after the Sahaba, you need to know who they are. Are they trustworthy or not? And if they are not known, this is considered weakness in the chain of narration. Yes.
Sheikh, he said all the Sahaba are trustworthy. Isn't Hajjatul Wada' there's like 100,000 Sahaba? So are every single one of those 100,000 considered status of Sahabi? If we hear a hadith from them, it is automatically.
Yes, it is. However, we don't know all the 100,000. So the numbers of the Sahaba who actually reported from Rasulullah ﷺ is much less number. I don't know the exact number, but the number is less. But once a person is proven to be Sahabi, is accepted. There are some of the Sahaba, they were young. So somebody who was 9 or 10 years old, people start questioning, is he a Sahabi or not? Because he met Rasulullah ﷺ before he reached the age of puberty. So here the ulama pay attention. Was he somebody who is conscious and aware? Is he paying attention? Then he's trustworthy. So we have people like Ibn Umar and so on, and earlier Sahaba, who were, even when they're young, they're paying attention and they're memorizing. Different, you might sometimes have people in their 30s and 40s, you wouldn't trust their memories. So it makes a difference. There are some of the people who are considered mukhadram. Mukhadram, that means they were contemporary of Rasulullah ﷺ, but they haven't met him. Like Uwais al-Qarni. Uwais al-Qarni, he was at the time of Rasulullah ﷺ. He was in Yemen. He believed in him, but he never got to meet Rasulullah ﷺ. But Rasulullah ﷺ told of him how he was so kind to his mother that if any of you, the Sahaba, meet him, ask him to make dua for you. Uwais al-Qarni. And then Umar al-Khattab, he met him later on, asked him for dua. And then when he moved on to Iraq, he asked that he will be among the common people, and then he disappeared from the main city, so people, because they started knowing him, and they went to areas they didn't know him, and nobody knew what happened to him. He wanted to be just a general man in the public. He didn't want any distinguished status for him. باب لا يسمي الرجل أباه ولا يجلس قبله ولا يمشي أمامه. So this is a chapter about certain acts of respect for the father. حدثنا أبو الربيع عن إسماعيل بن زكريا حدثنا هشام بن عروة عن أبيه أو غيره عن أبي هريرة. هشام بن عروة أبوه عروة بن الزبير، وعروة بن الزبير يروي عن أبيه الزبير وعن غيره من الصحابة أن أبا هريرة أبصر الرجلين فقال لأحدهما ما هذا منك؟ قال أبي. فقال لا تسميه باسمه ولا تمشي أمامه ولا تجلس قبله. ما تناديه يا فلان، قل يا أبي، أو أي شيء من الألفاظ التي فيها احترام. لا يناديه كما ينادي أخاه أو صاحبه، يظهر احترام له، ولا يمشي أمامه إلا لحاجة، يفتح له باب، يحمل له شيء، لا يسبقه في المشي، ولا يجلس قبله، ينتظر جلوسه، إذا احتاج مساعدة ساعده. In this narration, Abu Huraira, he noticed two people together. And he asked one of them, what is the other man's relation to you? He looked a little bit older than him. He said, he's my father. He said, okay. He taught him some of the etiquettes that he learned it from Rasulullah ﷺ. So when you call him, you don't call him with his first name. So you don't say John, Musa, Yusuf, whatever it is. You don't call him first name. You see it sometimes, people in non-Muslim communities, they call their parents with their first name as a sign of being independent and strong and so on. This is total disrespect. So you call him either a father or a name that he likes, Abu Fulan, something that he likes to be called with, but not his first name the same way you call your friend, your brother, or your cousin. And when you walk, don't walk in front of him. So you walk either next to him or step a little bit back to him, unless there's a reason. You need to open a door for him, you need to carry something heavy for a reason, yes, but in general, you don't, because usually your father is going to be slower than you. He's going to be worse. So it's a sign of respect. You keep pace with him, but you don't go ahead of him. And when you sit, you wait for him to sit down. You don't jump and sit down. Respect, and he might need help. But even if he did not need the help, then it's a sign of respect. You wait for him to sit down. باب هل يكني أباه أو يكني أباه. حدثنا عبد الرحمن بن شيبة قال أخبرني يونس بن يحيى بن نباتة عن عبيد بن موهب عن شهر بن حوشب قال خرجت مع ابن عمر فقال له سالم الصلاة يا أبا عبد الرحمن. إذا كان ابن عمر يكنى أبا عبد الرحمن، فابنه سالم نادى أباه ابن عمر فقال له يا عبد الله، أو ابن عمر قال له الصلاة يا أبا عبد الرحمن، دليل احترام. This is in continuation that you don't call your father with first name. So in this narration, Ibn Umar once was out and his son Salim was with him. When Salah came to him, so Ibn Umar being older, you need to be reminded about the Salah. And he said, it's Salah time, Abu Abdul Rahman. So the nickname of Ibn Umar was Abu Abdul Rahman. So he didn't say, oh Abdullah, it's time for the Salah. So as a sign of respect.
Sometimes relationship with father is like a friend. I mean, you can still joke with him, like walking in front of him. If he doesn't feel it, the respect.
Yeah. So the difference, as I said, if there's occasions, I said you're at home, you're fun, whatever, you're out hiking and so on. But you're in a public place in front of people, you show respect for your father. Joking with your father and things that he likes, he doesn't mind, that's of course encouraged. You want to keep things light and people liking one another. There's one narration that Aqra ibn Habis, he was one of the known fighters, A'rab. He came to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He saw him once playing with his grandchildren, Hassan, Hussein. He carried them and kissed them. He said, I have 10 kids. I never kissed one of them. And Rasulullah sallam, وَمَا أَمْلِكُ لَكَ أَن نَزَعَ اللَّهُ الرَّحْمَةَ مِنْ قَلْبِكَ. So, what can I do for you? For Allah has taken all kind of mercy from your heart. So, the people of the desert, they want to show strength and toughness. We didn't treat the boys with kindness. They need to be toughed up. And that's why they usually, his name, Al-Aqra, the bald guy, Ibn Habis, the one who will put people in prison, and so on. And you see him, Al-Asam, Al-Adrad, bad names, kind of scary names. And they get for the girls, all for the slaves, good names, Jawhar or Ambar and so on. Name jewelry, perfumes, and so on. So we name our slaves for ourselves, we name our kids for the enemies. Until now, we see some people call their children Mut'ib and so on, the one who give you trouble, and so on. It should be chosen as a good name. The sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that one should choose good name for their kids. I'm trying to remember, I think Sa'id ibn Jubayr, or one of the other tabi'een, that his father was named, I think something Al-Hazan or something like this. And when Rasulullah wanted to change it, he said, no, this is the name my father kept me. He said, we all have this, because Al-Hazan means sorrowness or difficulty. And his father refused to change his name, said this sorrowness and difficulty kept on going in our bloodline. So it's better to call your family with good name. In this hadith, it relates to that if your father has a nickname that he likes to be called with, then you call him. Ibn Umar, radiallahu anh, he would call his father, I think this hadith will relate to it, عن عبد الله بن دينار أن ابن عمر قال لكن أبو حفص عمر قضى وذكر تتمة الحديث. Once Ibn Umar was referring to his father, Umar, he said, Abu Hafs Umar my father, Abu Hafs, he said so and so. So I would respect. Sometimes, if we want to be very objective, Ibn Umar would say, when he was told about the Sunnah of Rasulullah about doing something, he said, but Abu Bakr did this and Umar did this. He said, you are about to be rain from hail and stones be upon you. I tell you Rasulullah did something and you tell me Abu Bakr and Umar did something else? Because he is a matter of teaching. He's treating his father as being Khalifa rather than a figure, father figure. But when he has a chance to talk with him or talk about him, we say Abu Hafs Umar. And that's the nickname of Umar. Umar, he never had Hafs. But that's the nickname that he had. Hafs is the lion. He had a daughter named Hafsa, but that's not the reason was he called Abu Hafs. So a lot of times saying the nickname of the person doesn't necessarily have to be that of his father or his son. Usually somebody would be called after his son or his father. Ibn so-and-so, Wild. I think a lot of Morocco and Mauritania say bin so or Wild so-and-so. In the Levant, in Syria and in that area, Abou. So usually if you don't have children, they call you Abou in the name of your father. I've been called Abu Zakariya since, I don't know, I was 10, 11 years old. My father was Zakariya. So, and I have a son now, it's Zakariya. So you can choose a nickname if you want from the beginning. Aisha radiallahu anha, who knows what's her kunya? The kunya, but when they call her Abdullah. So that was the name for her. So if her nephew or Urwa or someone like this want to call her, say Abdullah. So she never had children. She never had Abdullah. We know about that little child that used to come and play with a bird in the masjid, and then he disappeared. Yeah. So Rasulullah used to play and say, Ya Aba Umayr, ma fa'ala Nughayr. We ask him. Nughayr was a little bird. And ask him, O Aba Umayr, what did that bird do? And this hadith has a story behind him. Some of the people who criticized Ahlul Hadith, Ahlul Athar, say, why are these people narrating these nonsense hadith? What benefit we need to know that Rasulullah talked to a boy about Umayr ma fa'ala Nughayr? There's no use of it. One of the ulama, I think he put like 100 benefit from this hadith. So one of it that it is allowed for a man to joke with a child. He's allowed to joke even if he's not child. He's allowed to do it as long as there's no doubts that there'll be anything wrong. It is okay for children to have nicknames. It's okay for a person to have a nickname without having a child to be named after. It is okay for people to keep birds as long as they don't hurt them. It's okay to do it. And he got a lot of benefit out of just this one hadith, ma fa'ala al-Nughayriya Aba Umayr. So having a nickname, it's a habit that's part of Islam. Now, is it a sunnah of deen that you have to do it? If you do it out of following the sunnah of Rasulullah and the Sahaba, inshallah you get rewarded for it. But I know some of the people are asking, what's your kunya? I say, in our tradition, there's no kunya. There's nothing Abu Fulan, Abu Alan, our kunya. So it's nothing wrong in it, but if they went out of that tradition and brought back the tradition of the Sahaba, they all had kunya. And you see even Imam al-Bukhari will have a kunya, Imam Muslim, he has a kunya. All of them had a kunya. Their students would not call him Muhammad ibn Ismail for Imam al-Bukhari, Abu Abdullah, and so on. All of them, they had a kunya that their students and children and people interact with them will call him with that kunya.
For Aisha, she never had children. She will call them Abdullah. I mean, did she never ever have children? Is there any hadith says like she wanted the children?
Yeah. Rasulullah, when he was talking about Khadija, and when Aisha was just on, he said, Allah gave me children from Khadija, and He didn't give me children from any other woman. He married a lot of women. So he had from Maria al-Qibtiyya, he had one child, but the rest of the women he didn't have children from.
And she can ask him, make dua, we have kids, for example.
Not that we know of. And we know Allah has revealed, ما كان محمدا أبا أحد من رجالكم. Allah has decreed that Muhammad ﷺ is not going to be the father of any of the men of the Muslim. That means he's not going to have a male son that will inherit him. A lot of the ulama said so that leadership in Islam is not blood decided. It's not according to inheritance. It's not a kingdom that they need to be inherited. It's about the knowledgeable people, the ones who have piety, worthy of leadership. But the biggest leadership, the Khilafah, should be in the tribe of Quraysh. The bloodline of Quraysh is vast enough. You're going to find somebody worthy of leadership and knowledge. There's always people, ulama. And the tribe of Quraysh, among them are Ahlul Bayt, the children of Ali radiallahu anhu. So yes, Ahlul Bayt are worthy of leadership, but they're not the only one worthy of leadership. If somebody else from the tribe of Quraysh is worthy of leadership, the powers of their time, of ulama and leader and military and so on, they choose a Khalifa, then they go with that Khalifa. باب وجوب صلة الرحم. حدثنا موسى بن إسماعيل حدثنا ضمضم بن عمرو الحنفي حدثنا كليب بن منفعة قال جدي يا رسول الله من أبر؟ قال أمك وأباك وأختك وأخاك ومولاك الذي يلي ذاك حق واجب ورحم موصولة. So this hadith about the kind of kinship that you keep. So a man asked Rasulullah sallam, who should I keep the kinship and the ties of the kinship? You say your father and your mother, your sister and your brother, and everybody that has allegiance to you, مولاك. الولاية بالنسب أو بالموالاة العبيد الذين يحررون ويبقى ولاؤهم لقومهم. حق واجب ورحم موصولة. This is a must. It's the rahim, the womb, the ties of the womb. That is anything that relates to bloodline. وحدثنا موسى بن إسماعيل حدثنا أبو عوانة عن عبد الملك بن عمير عن موسى بن طلحة عن أبي هريرة قال لما نزلت هذه الآية وأنذر عشيرتك الأقربين في سورة الشعراء قام النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم فنادى يا بني كعب بن لؤي أنقذوا أنفسكم من النار يا بني عبد مناف أنقذوا أنفسكم من النار يا بني هاشم أنقذوا أنفسكم من النار يا بني عبد المطلب أنقذوا أنفسكم من النار يا فاطمة بنت محمد أنقذي نفسك من النار فإني لا أملك لك من الله شيئا غير أن لكم رحما سأبلها ببلاها. In this hadith, Abu Hurairah said, when Allah has revealed the ayah, وَأَنذِرْ عَشِيرَتَكَ الْأَقْرَبِينَ, and warn the closest of your tribe. It's in Surah Shu'ara. It was revealed in Mecca. Abu Hurairah wasn't a Muslim in Mecca. So he tells who he heard it from another Sahabi. But he doesn't have to report with Sahabi because, as we said, all the Sahaba are trustworthy. So he started with the biggest tribe, Quraysh. يا بني كعب بن لؤي أنقذوا أنفسكم. So all the children of Ka'b ibn Lu'ay, save yourself from hellfire. And then start going further. يا بني هاشم. That's the part of the tribe of Quraysh that Rasulullah belongs to. Save yourself from hellfire. يا بني عبد المطلب, his grandfather. All the children of Abdul Muttalib. أنقذوا أنفسكم من النار. يا فاطمة بنت محمد. So I get the closest of him at that time was available, Fatima bint Muhammad. Save yourself from hellfire. I cannot give you anything. I cannot protect you from Allah, but there is the kinship tie. I'm going to keep it with the duties for it. So he started with the biggest tribe going down. That is your duty toward your family. Start with the closest and expand to the best of your ability. There's a story they report that once Muawiyah radiallahu anh, he was known for his wisdom, fairness, and following the sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. That's why he was chosen unanimously. All the Muslims agreed to him to be the Khalifa. After Ali was killed and people gave bay'ah to Al-Hasan ibn Ali, Al-Hasan, he came to Muawiyah, he said, I don't want any more bloodshed. I don't need the Khilafah. He trusted Muawiyah being going to lead with the Sunnah of Rasulullah. He gave him pledge of bay'ah, and all trouble stopped at the time of Muawiyah. So one time, people will come from tribe of Quraysh, they'll get certain benefits, like a salary or something, whenever they get money. So he usually sent first to the family of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, to his wives. Then they will send it to Bani Hashim, then Bani Abdul Muttalib, then a tribe of Quraysh. So all of them being the kinship of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So somebody came, I want Muawiyah to keep the tie of kinship between me and him. And I said, who is he? Mention names. I don't know that person. I don't know his father. I don't know his grandfather. What kind of tie? He said, bring him in. Say, what kinship tie? He said, we are brothers. He said, how come? Say, Adam and his wife were our grandparents. So okay, I'm gonna keep the tie of that kinship that I don't know anybody else kept. So he ordered him some money or something like this. So that's one of the things that people trusted. وَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ الَّذِي تَسَاءَلُونَ بِهِ وَالْأَرْحَامِ. It was very common that people, when they ask one another, that to fear Allah, and then tell him, keep the tie of kinship. So somebody needs something, first he will go to his family, to his tribe, before he will go outside. So somebody have a debt on him, he won't get married, he's about to go to jail, he needs some help. He starts internally first before he goes outside. Allah Ta'ala.
Did Sayyidina Hassan, when he told Muawiyah, I don't want no more bloodshed, give you the Khilafah, did he put a condition on him?
Yeah, so the condition was, after Muawiyah dies, Al-Hasan will be the Khalifa. Because Muawiyah was older than Al-Hasan. Al-Hasan was born in Medina. Muawiyah, when he immigrated to Medina, he was a teenager. So, I don't know, 15, 16 years old. So we're going to expect this 15, 16 years old between Muawiyah and Al-Hasan. Al-Hasan thought that he's going to outlive Muawiyah. But then, a lot of the historians believe that the extremists of the Shia killed Al-Hasan. They once stabbed him in his thigh, and probably with a poisonous dagger, and he got sick and died before Muawiyah did. Because they were not happy how he gave up the Khilafah. They wanted to keep the war going. With him being the closest relative to Ali, being alive, he accepted Muawiyah. They have no argument here. So they caused him to be dead. That narration is debatable because there's no authentic narration, just some historians mentioned it. Anyhow, what we know for sure that Al-Hasan died before Muawiyah. And then when Muawiyah was dying, he assigned his son Yazid as his successor. Al-Hussein felt no, he's no more worthy because he should be one inheriting his brother, Al-Hasan. Muawiyah said, oh, the deal was with Hassan, it has nothing to do with you. And that's when the whole split happened later on. Inshallah, I'll be reading about the الفرق الإسلامية فرق معاصرة تنتسب إلى الإسلام وبيان موقف الإسلام منها للشيخ العواجي. So this is a book about the different sects in Islam. Yes,
Is there significance to you saying Al-Hasan, Al-Hussein?
This is how they were named. They were not called Hassan and Hussein. Al-Hasan, Al-Hussein. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Hassan and Hussein, this is a slang that later on was very common in the Levant and so areas. Say Hassan and Hussein. It is Al-Hassan, Al-Hussein. الفصل السابع لزوم السلف جماعة المسلمين وتحذيرهم من التفرقة من التفرق وأدلتهم على ذلك. So once we establish the tenets of faith for Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah, that they follow the book of Allah, they follow the Sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, there's no difference whether it's narrated by one person or 100%. As long as it's coming from a trustworthy chain of narration, it's acceptable. No difference in matters of aqidah or matters of ibadah or muamala. It's all the same. Because some people say, oh, in matters of ibadah and fiqh, we accept one person narration. Matters of aqidah, we not accept it. We want to say, there's nothing from the Sunnah of Rasulullah to say that. He used to send messengers to tribes and kings, send one person. And that one person was enough to be considered a proof that he delivered the message. They either accept it or not. They don't say, oh, you're one person, send me 100 people to know that this is the teaching of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So this is the second one. The third one, the understanding and the practice of the Sahaba is the way to go. The way they understood, especially matters of aqidah, anything that relates to the creed, the tenets of faith, is what the Sahaba has believed and practiced, because they all are unanimous about it. There's no disagreement with them in that matters. In matters of ibadah, they are in general agreement in principles. They sometimes differ in certain ijtihad, and this is where it is acceptable ijtihad, that people will have differences in ijtihad, as long as they're following these general principles. Ijma', when Muslims, all of them, have consensus on a matter, then this is accepted. The consensus of the Sahaba is considered a source of legislation. After the Sahaba, it's hard to prove ijma', but normally when the most common ulama of Islam agree into a subject, that's considered ijma', even if you did not get all of them agreeing to it. Then one of these principles, that Muslims should strive to stay connected one group and not to separate into different groups. So the origin thing being one jama'ah. It should not be split. The difference of opinion, the schools of ijtihad and fiqh are considered one group. They're not splinter group. You don't have masjid for Hanafi, masjid for Shafi'i, masjid for Hanbali, masjid for Maliki. We're all Muslims, we all pray together. If our Imam is Maliki, he's doing things in a Maliki way, we follow it because we know it is acceptable by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The same thing if it is Hanafi or Hanbali and so on. So the group of Muslims are one. And we're going to talk about this subject. What are the proofs that we need to follow as one group? In Quran, a lot of times, like in Surah Al-Baqarah, وَاعْتَصِمُوا بِحَبْلِ اللَّهِ جَمِيعًا وَلَا تَفَرَّقُوا. You all should hold tight to the rope of Allah and do not separate into groups. The rope of Allah is the revelation, the Quran and Sunnah. وقالت الله تعالى إن الذين فرقوا دينهم وكانوا شيعا لست منهم في شيء. Those who separate their religion into different sects, you have nothing to do with them. وقال الله تعالى ولا تكونوا كالذين تفرقوا واختلفوا من بعد ما جاءهم البينات. And don't be like those who have separated and disagreed after clear signs was revealed to them. وقال الله تعالى وأن هذا صراطي مستقيما فاتبعوه ولا تتبعوا السبل فتفرق بكم عن سبيله. In Surah Al-An'am, Allah says to the meaning of this is my straight path, follow it, do not follow other paths, so it will take you separate from the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Sure.
No.
This ayah, subhanAllah, is talking about like the time of Rasulullah was not teams and stuff. It's like talking to us, like this.
Yes,
this side.
exactly. So it's the teaching they shouldn't, because at that time there was some ideas. Oh, these are muhajirin, this is ansar, this is Quraysh, this is Mudar, this is Rabi'a. This is, so people trying to go to their tribal allegiance, and Allah telling them there's only one allegiance to Allah. There's one religion. There's Islam. There's one path of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Don't everybody separate. Oh, we, the tribe of it, this is the way we do it. No, this is the way of Islam. Tribal and ethnic and all that has no way there.
Yeah. On the topic of ijma', how do we know when ijma' is like no one can disagree? Because there's like books of aqidah written, like Aqidah al-Raziyain. They say like we asked 500 different ulama from around the world. They all agreed upon these positions. I remember Bukhari, he had like 1,000 imams he discussed aqidah with, and they agreed. So how can someone disagree on the ijma' they say, if that makes sense?
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. The early ijma' is easier to prove. Things at the time of the Sahaba. As it expands later on, you already have different opinion, different sects start to build up. So that's where you see like ijma' al-Muslimin jami'an, that the Quran that we have nowadays, the exact revelation of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, nothing altered with it, not a word, not a letter. It's ijma' all the Muslims about it. Now, how about the Shia? Some of them claimed it when we say they're not from ijma' al-Muslimin. Whatever they say is not considered part of the ijma'. Anybody that claimed that Quran is altered, he's not part of Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah. So, in big matters, it's easy to accept. When you go later on to certain details, you're going to find some disagreement. So that's why they will say a jumhur. They will say the majority of ulama after that. Because you can build a number of majority of ulama rather than have a unanimous opinion that nobody disagrees with. The later on, it's harder to bring that on. So the biggest matters, yes, they all agree on. You're going to find later on matters, small matters of ijtihad and fiqh, they have some disagreement on it, and that's part of the principles of how you handle disagreement in Islam. وعن أبي هريرة رضي الله عنه عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم قال إن الله يرضى لكم ثلاثة أن تعبدوه ولا تشركوا به شيئا وأن تعتصموا بحبل الله جميعا ولا تفرقوا وأن تناصحوا من ولاه الله أمركم. In this hadith, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, Allah accepted three things from you. First, that you worship Him and associating no partners with Him. Second, that you all hold tight to the rope of Allah as one group, you don't separate into groups. And third one, you will be sincere in advice to those who have leadership upon you. وعن حذيفة رضي الله عنه قال كان الناس يسألون رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم عن الخير وكنت أسأله عن الشر مخافة أن يدركني فقلت يا رسول الله إنا كنا في جاهلية وشر فجاءنا الله بهذا الخير فهل بعد هذا الخير من شر؟ قال نعم. قال وهل بعد هذا الشر من خير؟ قال نعم وفيه دخن. قلت وما دخنه؟ قال قوم يهدون بغير هدي تعرف منهم وتنكر. قلت فهل بعد الخير من شر؟ قال نعم دعاة على أبواب جهنم من أجابهم إليها قذفوه فيها. قلت يا رسول الله صفهم لنا. قال هم من جلدتنا ويتكلمون بألسنتنا. قلت فما تأمرني إن أدركني ذلك؟ قال تلزم جماعة المسلمين وإمامهم. قلت فإن لم تكن لهم جماعة ولا إمام؟ قال فاعتزل تلك الفرق كلها ولو أن تعض على أصل شجرة حتى يدركك الموت وأنت على ذلك. هذا أخرجه البخاري والمسلم. In this hadith, Hudhayfa ibn al-Yaman radiyallahu anhu, he said, people ask Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam about matters that relates to good deeds. I'm always asking about evil. I'm afraid it might touch me or might fall into it. So I ask Rasulullah, we were living in Jahiliyyah and evil. And Allah brought us this good, this religion. Is there evil after that? He said, yes, there is. And that's when you see the fitna, when the Khawarij started and started killing the Sahaba and so on. He said, will there be good after this evil? He said, yes, but it's going to be a little bit murky, hazy. He said, what is this haziness? He said, you'll find some people call to the Sunnah, but somewhat they tell you is correct and somewhat they tell you is wrong. And that's when some of the bid'ah started coming into Islam. And said, well, after this good, will there be evil? He said, yes. You'll find people clearly calling people to pass at least to hellfire. Whoever follow them, they fall into hellfire. He said, describe them to us. He said, they are like us. They're from our own skin. They speak our own tongue. And he asked him, what would you order me if I see these people that call for hellfire? He said, you stay with the Jama'ah of Muslimin and their Imam. You say, how about if they didn't have a Jama'ah and Imam, the separate groups? You say, you stay away from all these sects, even if you have to bite to the root of a tree and stay on it until you die. So, truth is known. If you have country, khilafah, kingdom, that people found it, great. If you don't, you still follow the truth. The truth what came from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The manhaj Ahlus Sunnah wal Jama'ah is known from the Sahaba time till the end of times. Until times of Mahdi, times of Al-Masih, Masih al-Dajjal, people will know the truth. So you hold on to it. Large group of people around you, fine. Small, nobody, you stick to it. You just because you're few of number, you never abandon the truth. وعن أبي هريرة رضي الله عنه عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أنه قال من خرج من الطاعة وفارق الجماعة مات ميتة جاهلية. In this hadith, Rasulullah صلى الله عليه وسلم describing about those who disobey that's lawfully assigned Khalifa. And they abandon the Jama'ah of Muslimin. When he died as in Jahiliyyah. So this is what happens to the Khawarij. They had a Khalifa, Uthman radiallahu anhu. They started spreading rumors about him. They didn't like what he's doing. They wanted him to assign a different one. He refused. They killed him. They would die. Whoever dies without repenting, die Jahiliyyah. Same thing that they killed Ali, the Khawarij. Same thing. So anytime the Muslims are coming together, you have somebody started declaring them kafir right and left and killing their leaders and killing their individuals, he died as in Jahiliyyah.
Sheikh, can we just do this, maybe Khalifa, it means only the Khulafa Rashidin? Or, because there are some great ulama like Sa'id bin Jubair, he was Khalifa of Malik and he rebelled on him. Or it has to do just with killing or something. Like for example, I would like say, this Khalifa or this king or this president, he doesn't do good, I'm not going to go and kill or do anything, but I'm بريء منه ومما يعمل وكذا. Is that called خروج ولا لا?
So, in general, the أهل السنة والجماعة لا يروا الخروج على الإمام ما أقام الصلاة. So
what it means خروج is like fighting or?
Yeah. So the principles of tenets of أهل السنة والجماعة, you don't fight and rebel against the leader as long as he's establishing Salah, he's ruling with the rules of Islam. Whether he himself is a good person or not, whether he's a sinner or not, that's between him and Allah. As long as he's establishing the rules of Islam on the land, people are ruling with Islam, massages are open, people are learning their deen, they're practicing their deen, he's allowed to do it. Nobody is allowed to rebel against him. He's just, unjust, he's ruthless, he's fair, not fair, that's between him and Allah. That's the general rule. The more people stay away from ruling with the rule of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the harder it is to distinguish, how can I put it this? You still don't rebel against those who do not say we rule by the rule of Islam. So most Muslim countries, they don't declare Islam as the only source of legislation. They say it's one of the sources of legislation. Most Muslim countries, they will use Islam as an inspiration for their constitution or laws, but not the details, except for personal matters, individual matters, civil matters. So marriage and inheritance and divorce and so on, they will rule with Islamic laws. Most Muslim countries, some of them even abandoning that. The problem is, if you start rebelling about anybody that breaks the rules of Islam, as we've seen a lot of Muslim countries, it usually backfires when people start fighting Muslims and Islam. And that's where most of the ulama say, even when the ruler is committing grave sins, if rebelling against him going to lead to worse situation, you're not allowed to rebel against him. Who would know that? The wise leaders. So it's not up to individuals like us. We don't know what's happening behind closed doors. We don't know the people that hold the power, the ones in the military, the ones with finance, the ones with influence, what they're thinking, how they're dealing with, what kind of catastrophes they're dealing with. They're having to deal with two evils. They're trying to choose the lesser evil instead of bigger evil. We don't know that details. And that's what you see at the time after Al-Khulafa al-Rashidin. You see the times after Muawiyah has died, and maybe after times after Umar wa Abdul Aziz. All the leaders ruled with power. So anybody that stand against them, say anything against them, they prison them, they kill them, and so on. So it becomes kingdom, not true khilafah. And still the ulama say, don't rebel against them. Rebellion usually leads to worse condition. When Umayyads, they started to have a lot of power holding in their hand, and the Abbasi rebelled against them. Khilafah Abbasiyya wasn't any better than Umayyad. He just changed the family that was ruling. Instead of Bani Umayyah, Bani Abbas start ruling. And then later on, Bani Abbas, they lost their leadership because the tribes of Arabia that supported them, they replaced them with tribes or non-Arabs at that time. They got Ajam and Turk, they started. And then the ones who have military became the ones who are the true rulers of the land. You have the Seljuki Turks. They protected the Muslim kingdom, but the Khalifa was a symbolic status. It's not anymore a true ruler of Islam. Until Mamalik time, when Genghis Khan and his troops destroyed Abbasi Khilafah, the last Khalifa, he went to Egypt because that's the last Muslim country was ruled at that time. And Mamluks, after things settled down in Baghdad, they prepared the Khalifa. They want to send him back to Baghdad to rule again. They send him back, the Mongols come again and kill him again. They said, okay, we're not going to send him back to Baghdad, we'll keep him in Egypt. So for centuries, they had Khalifa, that he stayed in the citadel, would not allow him to go outside the citadel. He just signed the papers to assign who's the Sultan, Sultan Mamluki. And Sultan Mamluki ruled one after another until the Ottoman Empire came and they took the Sultanate from Mamalik. Some claim that the last Khalifa Abbasi, he gave the bay'ah to the Uthmani, and Uthmani became Khalifa, but Islamic is not acceptable. They're not Bani Quraysh, Uthman. So most of the Ottoman rulers were Sultan, they're not Khalifa. The one who claimed the Khilafah and was the very last one, Sultan Abdul Hamid. When the conspiracy against Islam was getting so big, internally, a lot of Hizb al-Ittihad wa Taraqi, the Masonic group, were infiltrating to change it from Islamic Khilafah into a secular country with the help of the British and French and so on, trying to destroy it. So he wanted to call upon the Muslim Ummah to come back together. So he declared the Khilafah again as being Khalifa. And then that failed. He tried to ally with the Germans. Germans lost the war. He was kicked out. And that was the end of it. So in general, don't rebel. The ones that need to make that decision are the people of power. judging that their decision will lead to less harm than benefit. And we've seen it with the so-called Arabian Spring, that most countries where it started with, even the people wanted change. The people in power, internally and externally, did not want it, and end up in big mess, big chaos in most countries. Change comes from the bottom up, not from up down. You just change the ruler, whether it's a president, it's a king, whatever you call him, and bring somebody else. If people did not change, then nothing positive will come. إن الله لا يغير ما بقوم حتى يغيروا ما بأنفسهم. A lot of people tell you, if Umar al-Khattab comes nowadays, want to rule us the way he was ruling in his time, people will rebel. The way that we're leading our lives, we're not going to go, oh, this is too extreme. We don't want somebody that rigid. We want to take it easy, individual choices. Don't force people to, yeah, we would not agree to it. People need to be, we have rulers that according to us. When people are good, the rulers are good even if they're not good themselves. They have to rule with the rules of Islam. When people are lenient themselves, they don't care about the rules of Islam, then it's easy for the ruler to cancel it. And you see a lot of Muslim countries that used to rule by the name of Islam, their rulers really didn't care. When their people cared, they kept these rules. When their people stopped caring, they stopped caring with this. So that's why people should start with themselves. And as we said before, the whole idea of Islam is obedience to Allah, conducting your lives to the orders of Allah, you go into Jannah. If you have a ruler in your country, Muslim Ummah, the whole earth that's following rules of Allah, great. But if you don't, you still have that individual responsibility to carry the orders of Allah to the best of your ability, you go to Jannah. At times of Fir'aun, when Musa came with the message, he has Fir'aun. He couldn't change anything with Fir'aun. Fir'aun has so much power. But he called to the truth. He called his people to stop worshipping idols, stop worshipping man, should go back to worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the miracles Allah gave him that he was able to save his country. Fir'aun, he couldn't defeat him, Musa. Allah, the one who defeated Fir'aun, drowned him in the sea. So sometimes there's things beyond you, but doesn't mean you shouldn't fulfill the orders of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There will be times that people will fulfill the orders of Allah. There will be times when people are ruling with the rules of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It doesn't have to be till the end times only when Al-Mahdi come, end of times. It can happen at any time. We ourselves, we think that the Sharia of Allah is the best way of ruling. But if somebody is ruling other than that, we still, our individual responsibility, what Allah wants us to do. You live in a country, they allow alcohol. You don't force people to stop drinking alcohol. You don't drink alcohol. You live in a country where they allow men and women to live together without marriage. We ourselves, we teach our children that the only relation accepted in front of Allah is marriage. But people, what they do, that's their business. We have no influence on them. We're not extremists that we force people to take our idea. We just teach. فذكر إنما أنت مذكر لست عليهم بمسيطر.
Sheikh, does this when al-amr bil-ma'ruf wa nahy al-munkar has to do a big role in the society? Because all the rulers, whether they are bad or terrible, they come from the people. Like, where did he come from? He didn't come from us. He came from the people. All the power of the police figures, they come from the people. So, as an individual, if I am only good, this would not change the society.
No, that's what I'm saying. You do to your ability. So, الأمر بالمعروف والنهي عن المنكر من استطاع من رأى منكم منكرا فليغيره بيده فإن لم يستطع فبلسانه فإن لم يستطع فبقلبه وذلك أضعف الإيمان. التغيير باليد لمن له السلطة في التغيير ويكون التغيير إيجابيا وليس سلبيا. إذا كان تغيير المنكر يؤدي إلى منكر أشد منه فلا يجوز تغييره. هذه قاعدة فقهية علماء المسلمين عليها. إذا من عنده سلطة على التغيير باليد يقوم بهذا. من ليس له هذه السلطة يقوم بالدعوة باللسان، ومن منع من هذا يقوم بالقلب. إذا يقوم الإنسان بما يستطيع عليه.
يعني subhanallah, I found a brother like last week. He was very furious about another brother who was peeing in the restroom and making everything like dirty. And he, come brother here, why did you do that? Well, why didn't you think about the other brothers who are coming after you? And I thought, subhanallah, this brother is very strong. He had like the courage to
Not necessarily
advise another brother who ruined the bathroom.
Yeah. So in this situation, you want a positive outcome, which is the person keep the place clean, tahir, for people. So, is it yelling and screaming is the way to do it, or is it teaching? We know from the Sunnah of Rasulullah, teaching. He had that Bedouin coming to the masjid. He was relieving himself in the masjid. In one corner, he relieving himself. He lived in a desert. He felt every land is like a bathroom for him, an open bathroom. So the Sahaba want to jump him. Let him finish. Once he finished, he said, bring a bucket of water, spill it on it. At that time, it was little pebbles and sand. So it's easy to clean it up. And then he taught him that. So even when your words are true, but they're going to have a negative effect, you don't say it. You say what is good. ما كان منكم يؤمن بالله واليوم الآخر فليقل خيرا أو ليصمت. So we're talking about ordering what is good, forbidding what is evil. There's levels of it: physical, verbal, and in the heart. Physical for those who have the ability and authority to do it. If you are a police, you are a figure person that have authority in the country you're in to change things that you see it wrong, you should see it. Your policeman see somebody stealing, you stop them. You see somebody beating another person, you stop it. You see him getting drunk in the public, arrest him, bring him to the judge, and so on. But if you are an individual, you see a drunk person in the street, you're gonna what? Make a had on him, beat him up? You have no authority to do that. So that will lead to more negative. Yes, the had of drinking alcohol, the ulama Muslimin tell you it's 100 lashes. Are you going to put him in the street, start lashing him 100 times? No. The same thing, zina is, if they're previously married, stoned to death. If they're not married, 100 lashes. So you see two people fornicating, going to do that. You have no authority to do that. So the authority that we have, verbal in a way that leads to positive change. So just seeing somebody, as you said, somebody who's urinating and not keeping the place clean, that's not nice. So this is wrong. So Amr Ma'ruf Nahy Munkar should be delivering a message in a way that that person would understand this is wrong, keep it clean. The Sunnah of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, you keep it clean. We know the hadith about the two people being tortured in the grave. One of them because he didn't keep clean after urinating for himself, his clothes and so on. He thought it was trivial thing. It was big because intentional. A small sin that's intentional, insisting on it, turns into kabira, into a big sin. And when you're not able to do that, all of that, at least in your heart, no, this is wrong. Yes, brother.
Did you say that the Khalifa has to be Quraysh?
Yes. Yeah. Imam al-A'zam, al-a'immatu min Quraysh. The hadith say the Imam, that means the big Imam, the big Khalifa has to be in Quraysh.
How about like today? How do we know who's Quraysh?
It is known. People are from Quraysh, they know they're from Quraysh. People from Ahlul Bayt, they know they're from Ahlul Bayt. And Ahlul Bayt are from Quraysh. So the blood lineage of Quraysh is known. The tribe of Quraysh in Saudi Arabia, they know, they have, they're still keeping list of them, and they have their own board or something like this. They're not the ones in Arabia. Outside Arabia, the families that are related to Quraysh, they have their family tree and they trace it back to Quraysh. It's known. Yes, madam.
You mentioned how we interact with the nation we live in. How like if the nation allows for something like haram marriage, then we do our best to advise, but we keep ourselves in check. When we see that there's an increased presence of Muslim politicians, governors, then are they sinful for interacting in the system without strictly adhering to Islam, saying we have to cover the awrah, pray 5 times a day, ban gay marriage, ban alcohol, when that wouldn't really help?
Yeah, so are the words going to be effective? Are they going to cause a change? Then they're responsible to talk it. If they know this is not going to cause change, don't waste their effort on fighting a matter that they're not going to be able to fight. Let's say in a Congress you have 5 Muslim representatives, and I don't know how many you have, 300, others are not. So you try talking about hijab and talking about awra and khamr and so on, it's not going to be effective. So that's not where you're going to be wasting your energy with. So you're going to be trying to help the Muslim community. So you're trying to fight Islamophobia. You're going to try to promote for Muslims to choose for themselves, where a state would not force your children to learn un-Islamic things or practice un-Islamic behavior. A lot of legislation is going on for religious charter schools, where Muslims can benefit from it. If you have an Islamic school where the government will pay part of the tuition of students, Islamic schools will benefit from it. Of course, non-Islamic schools will also benefit. They're pushing it for them, for churches and synagogues and so on. But Muslims can benefit from that. So yeah, that's a worthy thing. But when it's not, then you shouldn't. Now, should you be part of that system? A lot of ulama say you shouldn't pledge allegiance to anything other than the orders of Allah. So you pledging allegiance, you're gonna defend the Constitution and legislate that. You do it only if you have to do that. That your allegiance to Allah. Here they have religious exemption from the Pledge of Allegiance. You have groups like the Quakers, Mennonites, and so on. They're exempt from the Pledge of Allegiance for their religious beliefs. And Muslims should be the same. Your allegiance to Allah. You're not going to do anything harmful to this country. Anything that when you're promoting modesty, you're promoting morality according to the Islamic laws, it is good for this community. And you see that mostly in prisons. I know a lot of brothers who visit prisoners tell you the administration of prisons, they like imams coming to the prison, talking to the prisoners, because those who commit to Islam are unlikely to come back to prison to commit crimes. So they know the morality teaching of Islam is good for the society. So this is the things that you can work on, but you're not going to be able to fight every detail that you have. So anything positive you can do, you do it. Anything negative, you stay away from it. And the gray areas, you try to weigh the positive more than the negative. And to the best of your ability. Allahu Akbar.
So a verse you just quoted earlier, right? In Allah la yughayyiru biqawmin hatta la yughayyiru bi anfusihim. So how can we balance that, like we're living with this society, right? I'm sure like, we all want to change it to better, but if we're not allowed to be in constitution or run for that, so in what way are we like able to bring a change to like our society here?
So first you're going to start وَأَنذِرْ عَشِيرَتَكَ الْأَقْرَبِينَ. You're going to start with the closest to you. So before you're going to change things in Texas and Alaska and so on, you start with your own self, with your own family. If each one of us was able to raise children that adhere to the Islamic moral code with it, that's a positive influence. Most people have negative ideas about Islam, never interacted with Muslims or good Muslims. Sometimes you have people interacted with Muslims that are bad. We know that people in the West End, they don't respect a lot of Muslims because most of the alcohol places in the West End are owned by Muslims. So this is bad influence. So if you are able to be a positive influence, this is what you start with. You're not going to jump right away having somebody want to run for presidency. He's not going to be able to do anything. A lot of people were happy, oh, Barack Hussein Obama became a president. He's a Muslim. I mean, come on. We have people who are born into Islam, their parents are Muslims and so on. They're fighting Islam in Muslim countries. So, yeah, so it's not about the head figure in it. It's about starting yourself. When people do that on the family level, society level, then it spreads beyond and beyond and beyond. You see the, what they call them, the Mennonites and what's the other group, the buggy horses, The Amish and Mennonites. They kept their communities to themselves, and they keep in their tradition.
And successful.
Yeah, I'm not saying we need to close our community. For them, they have a different idea against technology about intermingling with the West and the whole technology thing. But the idea is you can keep your faith and practice. Your children can still go to school, they can still learn to work and so on, but knowing the limitation of obedience to Allah come first. If the job you're going to get is working for a bank, giving loans, and me dealing with riba and so on, tell your child, don't go in that line of work. If he's going to be opening an alcohol place in the West End and so on, I said, oh, this is haram, don't do that. But again, even your own child, you don't have force on them, or but you can educate them. Once they reach the age of puberty in this country, where they reach 18, you have no control of them. They do whatever they want. So your job is teaching in this case. You cut them off, anybody that do anything wrong in our community. Right away you cut them off, you throw them to the wolves. We help one another when we make wrong, that we repent, and we ask for forgiveness, make dua for others, that they don't commit mistakes again, but keeping the ties with Allah. A lot of people start thinking about Islam, about details of Sharia. Sharia is important, but at the end, it's your connection to Allah. If you're praying 5 times a day, and you hate the Muslim brother praying next to you, your prayer is not good. At the end of the day, you're making your dua, you start making dua on another Muslim, or you're causing harm to another Muslim. You stole his money, you cheated him, you caused him physical or emotional harm. This is dangerous. You know, the one sin, Allah, there's 2 kinds of sin He will never forgive. One of it is shirk. He will never forgive shirk. The other one is harming another human being. Justice will prevail. On Day of Judgment, Allah will bring those who carried misjustice against another person, and they will be even from them. And they have to pay it back. Paying back is hasanat and sayyi'at. There's no more money. So learning the true etiquettes and morals of Islam is the principles that we need to learn. The Sharia is a way to help us, guide us into getting closer to Allah. But then at the end, this nur that the hadith we're talking about, that's the one that we need to keep alive. One should think twice about taking an action that hurt another person, let alone a Muslim. Even a non-Muslim, you shouldn't be hurting them. An animal, you shouldn't be hurting them. So this connection, feeling that your connection is to Allah. Allah is seeing you. Allah is judging you. This is why this is the highest level of Islam. إحسان أن تعبد الله كأنك تراه فإن لم تكن تراه فإنه يراك. Allah is all the time seeing you. So this light that gives you this lightness, make it easy when you have a hard choice. Say, Allah is seeing you. Which way Allah wants me to be? You want to be this person that hurt people, people don't like me to be around me and so on? Or am I going to be that person that I will forgive, I will be giving, and whatever I do is for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Imam al-Albani rahimahullah, throughout his life of his da'wah, he said, I want 2 things if I can achieve in this life. Tasfiyah and tarbiyah. Tasfiyah, purifying our Islamic knowledge back to the origin. The way Rasulullah taught us, the Sahaba and so on. Remove all the Buddha, remove all these extra additions that came later on. But what is more important? Tarbiyah, raising the generations into following these rules. Because with just tasfiyah, you just know the rules, people become harsh and extremist. And they start judging one another. Oh, this person, his thobe is a little bit long, it's below the ankles, going to hellfire. This person, I saw him talk to a girl the other day, going to hellfire. This person is doing this, he took a loan from the bank, his riba is going to hellfire. And so I started judging people rather than you judging yourself. Do I need that loan to take them back? Can I do without it? then I shouldn't be doing it. Do I need to be alone with this female? I shouldn't be. I try to do my best when I'm not alone with females. Is there a way I can only eat halal food and avoid anything that is haram? Is there a way I cannot hurt anybody? If I hurt anybody, ask for forgiveness and make sure I don't do it again, and so on. So this is the part that we need to establish this nur. So this is why this is all dhikrullah, what we're doing here. So the little details are important for us to follow the path, but the path is there. It's between us and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Ihdina as-sirata al-mustaqim. The straight path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The hidayah of knowing, practicing, staying fast on it, and making da'wah for it. And then going back into that straight path every time we veer away. We as human beings, we have jahala. Jahala could be not knowing or not doing the right thing. So not necessarily being ignorant, being foolish. This is part of jahala. Foolish, you know what is right, you know what you should be doing, and you don't do it. So ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to fill our hearts with this nur, to show us what is right, so we follow it, show us what is wrong, that we stay away from it. There's a lot of the ulama mentioned the hadith, it's an athar of the Sahaba. They mentioned this dua, Allahumma qsim lana min khashyatika ma tahulu bihi baynana wa bayna ma'asi. Ask Allah to give us from amount of fear that prevent us from committing sins for Allah. وَمِن طَاعَتِكَ مَا تُبَلِّغُنَا بِهِ جَنَّتَكَ, and guide us to enough obedience that we reach Jannah with it. ومن طاعتك ما تبلغنا به جنتك ومن اليقين ما تهون به علينا مصائب الدنيا. Give us enough certainty and faith that makes all the calamities and adversities in this life easy for us. ولا تجعل الدنيا أكبر همنا ولا مبلغ علمنا. Don't make this life, this worldly life, is the only concern for us, the biggest concern for us. ولا تجعل فتنتنا في ديننا. And don't make our weakness is in our religion. ومتعنا اللهم بأسماعنا وأبصارنا وقواتنا ما أحييتنا واجعله الوارث منا. And that Allah will make us enjoy the powers that He gave us with our vision, our hearing, and everything, our body, make it part of us, and make us the last thing that depart us. That means we die as whole rather than being disabled. So ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive us and to bring us all together under His arsh, and to provide us with the shadow that He provides for those who love one another for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله